Yeah, but just in case.
You gotta have so many for school board. Jim, how many you need to have, like 100 and something?
No, it's like 60, I think.
60?
Wow.
Okay. What's that? All right. Okay, 7 o'clock. Have you let everybody in?
Everybody in that's waiting, or that's,
Okay.
you know, there, yeah.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Appreciate you coming out on a very cold night. The first thing I just wanted to say is, you know, the select board, we're here to represent all of our residents. We completely understand that not everyone agrees on many of the things that the town does, but in particular on whether housing is needed in our town, and on the concept of creating housing at Raptor Lane. And that's perfectly fine. We're never all going to agree, but we've slowed everything down. We want to take as much time as possible to gather information, provide information, and to get feedback from all our residents. So our hope is that we can slow the process down, have as many meetings as possible so that we can eventually build a consensus. And just as a factual thing so that we understand, we have no contractual relationship with SM Graves. We have not approved the proposal. The proposal was given to us and we are going to be working on refining that. And we also have not finished the due diligence.
I don't know if they can hear you. The microphone is muted.
Who's my microphone or theirs?
No, they can hear you.
Do I have to go back?
Yes, you do, sorry, Megan.
Oh gosh.
Well, you're,
Okay. So, sorry guys, our microphone apparently was muted. If you did hear what I said, raise your hand because I would be delighted not to have to repeat myself. Okay, so I will read this to you. I was just saying that the select board is here to represent all of our residents. We also understand that not everyone agrees on whether housing is needed in our town, nor on the concept of creating some housing at Raptor Lane. And that's fine. We don't expect everyone to agree, but we want to take as much time as is needed to gather information, to provide information, and to get feedback from everyone. So we are slowing the process way down. Our hope is to build a consensus. I also just wanted to make sure that we have a few facts on the ground, which is we have not entered into any contractual relationship with SM Graves. We have not approved the proposal that he provided to us, and we also have not finished the due diligence portion of the whatever this relationship might be if we were going down that path with the developer. Okay, now to the other things. So tonight's our regularly scheduled select board meeting where we will be addressing all our regular business. As you know, we have scheduled 2 initial meetings dedicated to discussing housing. More will follow as needed. The first meeting is tomorrow night at 5:30, so everybody doesn't have to be out so late. The focus of the meeting tomorrow night will be on whether there is a need for housing in Dorset and on what the housing demand is for the area. There will be opportunity for residents to give feedback and to ask questions. And we will have, I have the agenda here, we have some people coming to give us some of that data. The second meeting in February will focus on the concept that was proposed and will also focus on what the appropriate size and type of housing of a project would be for Dorset. We encourage you all to attend both meetings and any other meetings we have. For tonight, we will, again, we'll allow, depending on how many people we have here, but when we get to the public comment section, we're going to try to hold people to 2 minutes each. depending on, I'm gonna push the public comment. We have one thing on the agenda, that's not gonna take very long, and we have someone here waiting for that. So we'll do that first, and then we'll get to public comment. And then depending on that, at some point, we will put a hard stop on it. So I'll see when we're starting so that we can get to some of the other things on our agenda tonight. And as I said, any additional public comments and questions on housing can be raised at the meeting tomorrow night, at the meeting in February, and our other select board meetings. So what I would like to do to start is to move up the zoning bylaw public hearing. And then after that, we can get to public comment. And I know we have Rob the Youth here from the Dorset Field Club. We have the information in our packet here, which is a request and has already been approved by the Planning Commission to make a small change to the zoning map because the Field Club purchased a piece of land on Parsons Lane. I think you've heard about it before. We just haven't actually had the public hearing. So we are, hold on, let me get out my agenda. We're opening.
Do you need a motion to open?
Open a public hearing.
Yep. I move that we open the public hearing for the zoning bylaw change.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Where are you, Rob? Do you want to give us just a little quick overview of why we're doing this?
So the club purchased 102 Parsons Lane last February, and anyone familiar with the club, this particular parcel sits right in the middle of the club's campus, in between our pro shop and our driving range. The rest of the upper campus is zoned village business, and that particular parcel is zoned village residential. So in order to really just mold it into the rest of the upper campus, we're requesting a zoning change so that it's a little, just along the same lines as the rest of the upper campus of the club.
Mm-hmm. Does anyone have any comments or questions? I think it seems fairly logical, and I know the Planning Commission has already approved it. Can I have a motion to approve the zoning bylaw change?
I will make a motion to approve the zoning bylaw change as presented by the planning commission.
Okay. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
I'm recusing myself, Rob.
Okay. Rob, you can go.
That was Frank recused?
Yeah, Frank recused. Okay. All right, so now I'll open it up to public comment. If anyone is going to speak, if you would please just give your name ahead of time. We are trying to keep minutes, so.
David Brockway. First, I'd like to say to Megan, thank you very much for the approach you're all taking. I can't really speak for anybody, but I'm sure that everybody feels very good about that. A couple of points. One, just to confirm that the more strategies agreement won't be signed.
Correct.
Now. And the other, I don't know whether you still plan on going ahead with the Tier 1B for South Dorset, if that's whatever the area was. And I guess that a number of us think that would, to the extent we can build any trust, we think doing that tonight before we have a chance to sit down and talk at all and see whether we can work out anything is not going to facilitate trust. And so I would hope you just don't do that tonight in any event and have some opportunity for exchange of views. Thank you.
Anybody else? Nicole raised first, then we'll come to you.
Nicole Mills, I live on Meadow Lane in the village, and I just wanted to thank the board as well for all this work. I know it's a tremendous amount of work, and I think that even people who have doubts about this project don't deny the need for the affordable housing and for more housing in Vermont. I think it's a well-acknowledged problem, and I think that anyone who has questions about it has questions about logistics and the developer selection process and structural things and other things like that, but not about the fundamental need, and I don't think anyone wants to obstruct that. So I just would like to put that out there, that nobody's out there trying to say, oh, this is, you know, we don't believe it's a problem and we don't want to help solve the problem. So, thank you.
Thank you. Michael?
Michael Flett, live on Church Street. One thing-
And Michael, can I just ask, because you're in the back, just speak up a little because
Yes.
the folks up here might not hear you.
Michael Flett, I live on Church Street. One thing I'd like to bring up is the Tier 1B designation. You know, I think everyone knows what Act 250 is. You know, it's been, you know, here for, I don't know, 40 or 50 years. It's intended to protect the environment. It's evolved over the years. And the way I look at it is with Tier 1B, it removes Act 250 from these areas. And I think it's really important when it's mapped by, I guess there's a commission in Bennington. They look at our town, they map it. The people that are in that area that own property, especially on Route 30 from Morse Hill up to, I don't know, almost J.K. Adams, which is this Tier 1B area. If you designate this Tier 1B, from what I understand, Fred, you know everything about this, and I can tell you want to chip in.
No, he's the only one.
Right, so if I own property there, I would really want to understand what's being done. You know, it's the most important thing is when you own property. And we're all protected by Act 250. It's always like annoying, right? However, when you take it away, you're like, wait a second, what are you actually doing? What can my neighbor do now when they sell their house? I think it can lead to a lot more, it just changes everything. So I think it's really important that we communicate with our property owners in town of what you're changing. And a lot of them might be like, great, get rid of Act 250. Then I can develop maybe denser. I can sell, maybe it'll increase my property. However, if you live next door to somebody like that, it really changes everything. So I just suggest that explain to these people what you're doing and how you're rezoning their properties so that it's just not a surprise.
Okay.
I do want to chime in. Thank you, Michael. I'm not an expert in what Tier 1B is, but just currently for Act 250, Dorset's what we call a 10-acre town. Some towns are 1 acre, some are 10, depending on if they have subdivision zoning regs. So for Dorset, Act 250 would be triggered for a residential project if it's 9 or more building units. And that could be houses, that could be townhouses. It's individual units that you would live in separately. Or for a commercial project, it would be a commercial project on more than 10 acres. So that's just what the current triggers for Act 250. Just in case anyone was wondering.
Well, we're all wondering, Frank. Just happy to have you here.
Thanks.
Now I understand.
Yeah, at least that's my portion. Okay, anyone else?
I have a
Tatiana?
question. Then why are we planning to change the zoning and it will affect the neighboring properties, including 2 of the properties of my own? And also, it's gonna devalue my property and everyone else's properties if you're gonna change the zoning and remove Act 250 and you put in different tier. This is the first question. Second question is, as we all know, we submit 2 petitions, and I don't know if it's appropriate to ask right now or not, but I would like on which grounds all the petitions were denied for Dorset residents. First petition was signed by 180 people. The second petition was signed by 124 voters, and I heard that both petitions were denied, and it's basically you taking away our voting right as a residents on these 2 subjects, on Tier 1 or 2 zoning, and also on another one, on Raptor Lane, selling, leasing, anything. So Dorset residents in 2 days came up with 125 signatures. We were running around collecting signatures, people were signing, they wanted to vote. And what town did, from my understanding, hired an attorney to actually, from taxpayers' money, to shut us down on the petitions.
So if I could just stop you there, we are going to be talking about the town meeting warning later. And at this point, I will tell you, first of all, we didn't hire an attorney to shut down the petitions. We have a town attorney that's worked with us for maybe 6 or 7 years, and he might be on the call. But in fact, every single year, when we do our town warning, we have to run it past our attorney to make sure that everything that is on there is properly warned and is something that in fact is designated by state statute. So we have to follow the state statutes on what we do, particularly with town meeting. And we're not going to address the individual things for each of the petitions now, but I will tell you the decision has not been made, simply that when the petitions were put in and our attorney advised us that at least on 2 of them, we should not be putting those on the warning. We wanted to make sure that at least one person, which was Dave, who had drafted one of them, just understood the opinion of our attorney. It was not to threaten, to shut down, but more that if he wanted to redraft a different petition that didn't address the issues that were problematic, that he could. So if you wait until we get to the part of the town warnings, we'll be addressing each of those articles individually. And again, even with the Tier 1B, we're going to have a discussion about it tonight, but we have not made any decisions on that. So we're going to have that conversation.
Thinking of making one comment. I'm on a bunch of boards, and you know, one thing to recognize with you know, publicly elected boards in the state of Vermont is you have to recognize when you say like, well, you guys have decided and all. We are strictly bound by the public meeting law rules in the state of Vermont, which means that we can't make any decisions outside of public meeting. You know, everything, you know, any decision that is made, that's where it gets a little frustrating sometimes sitting on a board and people are saying, you guys have decided and you voted to do this. And it's like, we can only do things in public session is the only time we can make a decision. So, you know, it's just important to recognize we're actually, you know, when there's a lot of discussion going on, we're kind of more restricted than your normal folks in discussing these things because, you know, we can discuss it as an individual and what our own view is. But even if 3 of us are together, we can't talk about town business.
At a cocktail party, yeah.
Because that's the rules. So, you know, so you do, you know, at least you have the benefit of knowing that, you know, what we're, you know, I think we all take very seriously our, you know, the constraints put on us by public meeting law. And, you know, so you can kind of know that we're not holding these, you know, all these side discussions, deciding things and all that stuff. It has to be done in public.
No, and also, consequently, why things are on the agenda and why there's all this information is because we need to discuss it and we need to understand it. So that is why it's in our package. It's not because we've made a, you know, predetermined decision that we're going ahead with it. But this is the only way we can discuss it and come to a decision.
So to come back quickly to a petition, just a quick rerun. Since you are consulting an attorney, should we as a public hire an attorney so we have a right petition signed? So we have no glitches or anything in terms of making the right way that would be acceptable to the select board and the town attorney? Because we don't know as a residents how to put a petition. We put a simple petition.
No, of course, and it depends on what the petition is, but there are certain things that by state statute, the voters cannot, even if you put a petition together, it's not within the authority of the residents.
I think it probably is within the authority of the select board actually to allow votes on these. And so if you actually want to diffuse the issue, you have to really seriously think at some point before you spend a lot of money to allow the townspeople to vote and then not have it be some meaningless vote that you can ignore, but one that you commit to follow. And I don't care what the legal procedures are, and I'm not going to argue with the town council. I don't know anything about Vermont law, right? But it's a matter of how we're going to go forward in a way where you hear the voices of a lot of people, and there may not be a majority of the town. Who knows what the majority of the town is? I mean, I certainly have no idea. But the fact that you could get this many signatures in a very short time shows you the level of concern that's out there. And a lot of that can go away if we work together, and if you're right that everything is, before any decisions are made, it's out there. But I am worried about spending $1 million before you know where you're going, right? I mean, I think it's got the cart in front of the horse. I mean, find out whether there's even any chance of this proposal working. But I do think it makes sense to think about whether or not that there will be an effective way of the residents, if they, at the end of the day, however this process goes, if they don't agree that this is a good thing to do, that they can vote. I mean, this is the largest, as far as I know, the largest thing this town has ever done. I don't know any of your backgrounds enough to know whether you have any background to decide whether this makes commercial sense, financial sense. I certainly know I don't have it. But you're risking a lot, and I bet, again, no contracts have been drafted, but I bet the fall guy, if this thing doesn't play out in accordance with projections, is the town and the town's taxpayers. At the end of the day, I bet you that's what happens. It may be it's the guy out in left field someplace. Maybe it's the state, but it's not going to be the developer, if I understand those financials, and it's going to be the townspeople. So you have to, and people can take the risk, but they have to understand what they're getting into. And right now, there is, at least for a large enough number to pay attention to, there's this serious lack of trust, and hopefully we can get past that. So that's just my
Okay.
2 cents worth.
Any other public comments right now? Because we could, I mean, I'm happy to move into, we can move
Harlan's
the,
here.
is he here?
Jim, can you hear us?
There he is.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you. So what I'm wondering is if there is nothing else specific with public comment, we could move right into the agenda and we could move right to the town meeting warning and start to discuss that. But if there's something else, a different topic, I'm happy to do that, because then we can discuss the petitions and...
I would like to comment, if available, from Zoom.
Okay. Who can you just say who that is? I see the initials, but...
Sorry, J.D. Sullivan.
Okay.
So, I'm an adjacent landowner to this whole project, and I've been aware of this for many years and followed it. And I'm not going to the merits of the projects proposed right now, but I think there's been a lot of chit-chat and discussion around town, and my biggest fear is this becomes a very divisive issue in town, and not that various opinions aren't appreciated. But I think at this point, what we ought to think about, what can we do? And I've run a bunch of manufacturing companies over the years, and we've had consultants in, and they're doing inquisitive inquiry, and I'm very skeptical of some of that. But the point is, I think that's kind of where we are. What can we do? What makes sense? What do most people think is reasonable? What is reasonable for the town? And how can we move forward together with this asset that we have and use it to a reasonable highest and best use? Maybe not highest, but the best use for this asset that we have as a town. So that's my opinion. I've got the biggest border with this property, or my family, and we want to do the right thing, and I hope we can get there together.
Thank you. And, well, hopefully the info sessions will also help, because as I said, what we're hoping for is to build a consensus. We're not here to shove something down everyone's throats. We're just trying to do our best with the information we have, and like we said, we want to gather information and feedback from all our residents. Okay. Anything else? Did Jim Barlow, did you want to?
Here.
Oh, wait, there you are. Okay. I'm not sure if you heard the discussion before about the petitions and the warnings. So I don't know if you wanted to weigh in a little bit on that, just on the two petitions, or should we just dive into them one at a time? But
Do you have specific questions for me, Megan? Is there anything you'd like me to address? I've given the board some written guidance.
Yep.
Glad to go over that if you'd like.
Yep. Well, maybe just the outline, and again, we are, what we're talking about is two of the petitions. Specifically, we're talking about things that, like I said, and you know, maybe to Dave's point, that the select board could override that, but they're not within the authority of the taxpayers. And the third one, which is a vote, which is a little bit different, a vote to vote. We'll discuss that in another minute, because that's in a slightly different category.
Well, maybe I can just give some framework for sort of general understanding about voter petitions. Okay, so we're all on the same page. When we look at Vermont town meeting, it is a body of what I term delegated authority. So the voters are authorized by statute at town meeting to do specific things that the legislature has authorized. And they're also enabled by statute to petition, to have articles on the warning for town meeting, but that authority or that ability is limited and subject to the restriction that the business that the petitioners seek to do at town meeting is lawfully within their authority. So you can only petition for those things as a voter that are within your authority as a voter to undertake at town meeting. And that authority comes from state law. So the first petition that I was asked to review said, shall voter approval by Australian ballot be required before the select board may 1. Adopt Tier 1B zone designations under Vermont's Act 181. 2. Approve development of the subdivision housing project proposed for town-owned forest land on Raptor Lane. Or 3. Enter into any contract related to such Raptor Lane project. So, looking at that, the first element of that is voter approval to adopt Tier 1B designation under Act 181. And if we look at Act 181, it provides no opportunity within that act for voter approval of Tier 1B designation. There's a specific process that involves the Planning Commission, the Select Board, and the Regional Planning Commission, but none of that is within the voters' authority to decide at town meeting. That's just the way it is. The second was approved development of the subdivision housing project proposed for town-owned forest land on Raptor Lane. Well, Vermont law, Vermont statutes, again, doesn't authorize voters at town meeting to approve or pre-approve development of town-owned property. There's no statute authorizing voters to vote on such things at town meeting. And then thirdly, to enter into any contract related to such Raptor Lane project. And again, there's nothing within Vermont law that authorizes voters to approve or pre-approve contracts that the town might enter into. That is an authority vested in the select board, as is the authority to review, consider, even approve development plans. So the bottom line for that petition article or articles, it would have to be parsed out into 3 sections, is that none of that is anything, none of the topics addressed there are anything that the voters have the authority to vote on at town meeting. This being the case, the select board is not legally obligated to warn
that petitioned article.
Okay, but we vote every year whether the town can give
I'm sorry, who's that?
This is William.
Okay? The
We
others,
every year that the, for the town, whether the town can give the Dorset Library $1,000.
Okay, Willie,
Yeah.
if we can, we're,
would like me to continue on the others?
yeah, why don't you hold
Questions
off?
at the end?
If we could do questions at the end and let us just discuss it as a select board first, because I think they're a lot of assumptions. And maybe quickly with the second one, and then we'll discuss the town warning in general. And I forgot about the minutes, so we'll come back to that. Okay, go ahead, Jim.
Okay, so there was a second petition was for an article, shall voter approval be required before the select board may appropriate municipal funds in connection with Tier 1B zone districts and the proposed Raptor Lane housing development project. This would effectively give the voters a prospective standing veto on select board spending or appropriations on certain topics that Tier 1B zoning and the development of the Raptor Lane property. And again, that is not how we work. It is not how Vermont statutes set this up. While certainly voters can approve appropriations, they don't have the authority to direct the select board specifically how not to spend or not spend money within the budget.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
And then there's a final one.
Yeah, I think.
Approval required before the select board may lease, sell, convey, or otherwise dispose of any interest in town-owned land on Raptor Lane. There is a statute. It is 24 VSA 1061 that requires that before the select board may convey municipal property, it must do one of two things. One of those things is to put that proposed conveyance to a town vote at town meeting, or the alternative is to give the voters notice of the proposed conveyance, to give the voters an opportunity to petition for an article to vote on that question at town meeting. So it's an either or, you do one or the other. Either put it to the voters prospectively or give voters the notice and see if they respond to it. But in either case, a town meeting vote would be required. And it's the select board's decision which of those avenues to follow.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Jim. That gives us the background. So why don't we move forward with the town warning? And the articles, and what you will see is, where's that typo?
Yeah, it should be 20, not 17.
Okay. So to begin with, when we're looking at this, or maybe we should just discuss the petitions first, so we can kind of clear that.
Sure.
So obviously, the town lawyer had recommended that we not include the 3 petitions for the reasons, the first 2 for the reasons that he gave, and the last because it is something that's required by statute anyway. And I think that we were all under the impression as we went through this, and speak up, but we were always of the impression that we would hold a vote, and that we knew that we had to hold a vote for the conveyance of land, whatever that conveyance might look like. Pardon?
Advisory vote or a real vote?
A real vote.
You always framed it as advisory.
It was framed as an advisory when it wasn't regarding the sale of land, because we were trying to see if we could do an earlier advisory vote just about the project. So whenever there would be a conveyance of land, whatever that would be, and that would be, depends on what the, where we would be in the timing of that. But that would require according to the statute. And since we already have a petition that says that we the voters would like a vote, there's, I think it makes perfect sense for us to just include it in the warning. And the language of that one, which you'll see, I had Rob add to our warning, is it's the third petition, shall voter approval be required before the select board may lease, sell, convey, or otherwise dispose of any interest in the town-owned land on Raptor Lane. So that is now Article 13. And one other thing that was added in here is that because we have not, when something is a public question, we have to have voted that we can vote by Australian ballot on public questions. So Jim also had recommended to us that we add in the language that says, shall the town of Dorset authorize the use of Australian ballot voting for public questions related to the potential development or conveyance of the town-owned Raptor Lane property as permitted when such questions are otherwise governed by law. So it's an article that allows us to then vote by Australian ballot on Article 13 or anything else that would come up. Because if we didn't do that, then it would be something that would have to be just a floor vote at town meeting, where we typically do not get a very large crowd. So the first question I would have is, I think we would need to discuss the fact that the first two petitions we've been recommended by the attorney not to include for reasons that he gave. So do we have any discussion on that, or do you want to make a motion that we would have to reject those first two petitions?
So the Article 12 solves the problem of one of those petitions, which said Australian ballot, which we're not authorized to do yet, unless we pass Article 12.
So that we couldn't put in Article 13 if we didn't have Article 12. Because then it will be voted by Australian ballot.
It's referencing 17 VSA 2680 right now. That's different than what Jim referenced.
Jim referenced the 24 BSA 1061 for Article 13 specifically, and I think that
That's-
probably the other one is just related to the Australian ballot process.
Okay.
Yes,
right,
it's
right,
the Australian
right.
ballot
Okay.
process.
So my thought is Article 12 covers a lot of the concerns from the petitions raised by the public, right? Just wanting to be able to vote on potential development, conveyance of the property. We're ingesting the spirit of those petitions, even though we can't specifically include the language that was written on them. We're doing our best to cover it, would be my opinion.
Right. And so if I understand 13 correctly, it's what Jim's last point was, where he was saying we have the choice to either have a vote or say we're going to do it and have people petition, but we're just making the decision now that we're going to do it the first way of having a vote.
Essentially, Article 13 is a vote to vote.
To vote.
And that was the petition.
And that was the third petition
turned
that
in.
I think John Weiss had drafted that one. So we've included his language in here and then added Article 12 so that we're allowed to vote by Australian ballot, so that we can make sure that we're going to.
We're looking for a motion. I'm happy to make a motion that, on the petitions, the 3 petitions received, that we address those through the addition of Articles 12 and 13 as presented.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So to your point, everyone will be able to vote.
Thank you.
Now, regarding the other things, which all look fine to me, but look through it again because we've already found multiple typos. And there's one more typo in Article 6.
The dollar amount, yeah.
The dollar amount should be 20,000, not 17,000.
I also, I had raised a question on Article 4 before. I see the number has changed, but the question is, on the 15,000, whether it was a double count or not.
It was a
It
double count,
wasn't, it
wasn't
was
it?
removed. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
he's
So
adjusted,
that's gonna change these numbers too.
And those are factored into the updated.
he changed that. He changed the budget first
Okay.
to correct it, and so this number should reflect that. It all looks good to me.
I missed that 20,000.
Yeah.
Looks good with the proposed change. I'd make a motion to approve the warning with the, as presented with the one adjustment made to Article 6 that was proposed.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Say
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now I accidentally forgot the minutes. So we have several sets of minutes to approve. The first were the November meetings, which we could not approve at the last one because I wasn't at the November meeting, and then two people weren't at the December meeting. So,
So I'll make a motion to approve the November 18, 2025 Select Board meeting minutes as presented.
do we
And I'll
see-
second it.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. On the December minutes, there were a couple of things that were pointed out. So we've also included Tricia's email. Thank you, Tricia. It's not easy. Everybody's talking. It's hard to keep track. So Rob has already made the changes, which was adding in Sandy had been eliminated, so I went back and tried to paraphrase what she said, and we've added that in. There was also, Don, it took me forever. I was just looking at that thing all the time. Did you stand up when you spoke? Because I kept trying to scroll through. That was the problem. Everybody should have to stand up. I went through that thing over and over.
Make me do it.
Wait, what'd you say, Don?
Stand up.
Yeah. So we added in an extra line based on Tricia's email because I could not find where he spoke. So hopefully that's all good. This is not a transcribing anyway. We have the meetings so that people can go online. And also there was some editing to the question to Peter Thompson. And that's why these extra pages are here. So these would be approved as amended.
But these changes will eventually get in
Are
here, so
in
it's
there.
one spot.
Yeah, most of them are in there now. I think there's just one that's missing.
Okay, now, the
Did
two
you
of
have
us
any
weren't
other-
at the
Yeah.
meeting. I watched the meeting, I took notes on it.
Oh, right, you weren't there,
But
so
I
you
wasn't there,
can't,
so I really.
and you
shouldn't
can't
vote on it.
either, Allison. Okay,
vote on it.
so then it's us
I
three.
will move that we approve the minutes of December 16th with the changes as just articulated.
Okay,
And I'll second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right. So with the tier 1B, and again, I know we've got a lot of information here, just trying to explain what it is. Do we want to have Rob give a little overview, or because I'm not even sure how this would apply, or
It
if
would
it's
just be
something.
those first two pages, just kind of.
Okay, well, why don't you just give us a general description of kind of what it is, how it works, what the state will do if we do something, if we don't do anything.
We talked a little bit about Act 181 earlier, and that it's essentially changing Act 250. And the new laws have set out the framework for a statewide process through future land use maps, which are being created and kind of codified into the Regional Planning Commission plans. And the state has created a land use review board, and they essentially have created tiers for land use designation in Vermont. The tiers are Tier 1A, Tier 1B, Tier 2, Tier 3. I've got a kind of a cut sheet in the memo from from the BCRC's website related to Act 181, and it gives definitions to each one of the tiers. On the right-hand side, you'll see that Tier 1A exempts all subdivisions, developments, or permits from Act 250 permitting, and that there's an application process. Tier 1B exempts housing projects of 50 units or fewer on 10 acres of land or less, and mixed-use development, and it's the same thing. Our RPCs follow the process for requesting status from the Land Use Review Board, so the towns have to apply. Tier 2, there's no exemptions, so there's no contemplated exemptions from 250 in that zone. And then Tier 3, there's critical resource areas, and then there's more rulemaking that's going to be coming from that. If you flip to the second page, you'll see a map of Dorset. You'll see the green, the dark green is, the way I interpret it, is going to be Tier 3, potentially, and then the lighter shade of green would be Tier 2. So the folks that maybe own property in those areas should be aware that there is going to be another layer of potential land use restrictions at the state level that would be in addition to the town zoning regulations. So as
Rob,
far
just-
as, go ahead.
Just think of that. The Tier 3 and Tier 2 that's nothing we would have any say in whatsoever. That's the land use board coming up with that
Correct.
and applying this map. No
So-
input from the town.
I mean, within reason, I think that the
But it's not
RPCs have
something we
tried.
can vote on, it just,
The RPCs, if you look at this map and you look at our zoning map, they're not crazily different in terms of some of the stuff. There are going to be nuances where, there's 1,500 parcels. We're not going to know
right.
every single impact at the state level, but there would be people that right now aren't jurisdictional for 250 that potentially would be in the future. In those, the two green areas, I think is what to.
The dark green and the light green?
Yep, is to point to. And there's, some of the stuff with the Tier 3,
But,
there's other trigger, that, the rules aren't made yet, I guess
but on the
is what I'm
Tier
saying.
2, essentially, there's no change from current law.
No exemptions from 250.
Right.
But they're creating a land use mechanism by which they're capturing everything.
Right, but I'm just saying that, currently, everybody, everything's subject to Act 2, or to.
Only certain, Frank had talked about it earlier, only certain things that are jurisdictional
Would qualify.
Okay,
would qualify. So this is an expansion of that. It potentially is no longer the 10-acre.
So it's not the, said before, 9 houses, 10 acres.
That's what it is now, but it
It's-
can change.
So this would move the.
This would change that.
goalposts.
In theory, this would change that, yeah.
But if we do nothing, then the state is still gonna decide for us, right?
This is, yeah, so there's kind of two parts to this. There's the Tier 1B process, which, they've made they being the state, has made it the possibility for certain, and I believe that there's going to be a limitation on the total number, but if towns want to designate areas that meet the requirements that the state writes for Tier 1B designation, the towns can then apply for those areas to be in Tier 1B. Ultimately, the Land Use Review Board approves that or doesn't approve it. That's kind of different, that's a different trajectory than, what I was referring to is that there's going to be a future land use map at the state level that kind of coincides with zoning. So it's a separate layer of regulation.
Right.
Eventually. And then, so for kind of where we are in the Tier 1B process here, in November, the Dorset Planning Commission approved the Tier 1B designation for Dorset Village, East Dorset Village, South Dorset / Raptor Lane. And then now it's before the board to discuss and talk about. And there's other stuff that is at play here in terms of like the regional plan is being updated with stuff like housing targets. There's a lot of other things that are kind of working in concert with all of this Act 181 stuff.
So the only thing that we would have direct control over now would be whether or not we want to apply for Tier 1B for one of these three areas potentially.
Right now, yeah.
I don't even know how this would apply to the
Personally, I'm just
villages.
having we had the benefit of BCRC coming in, presenting. I've tried to read a bunch of the materials out there from other planning commissions and stuff. And honestly, I'm still not totally clear on, it's clear that if you go for tier 1B, then there could be some advantages to somebody who wants to do a project there. As far as less regulation, availability of, grant funds, stuff like that. But what the downsides are and the loss of control, I don't fully understand right now. And that's, I'm just finding kind of frustrating trying to get myself to the point where I think I'm educated enough.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking, to Michael's point earlier about outreach, especially to people who are in these neighborhoods. We had the guy come in and explain it to us, but that was before it was really on anyone's radar. So I don't know, maybe we have him come back for another meeting and, now that people are aware this is a topic of conversation, they can come and ask their questions directly of him.
And maybe someone from the planning commission to represent what they
Right.
discussed and why they decided to approve
I
it
think
for
that
these
would be
areas.
really helpful to give people the opportunity, because, if I'm probably not the only person who doesn't feel I have my arms totally around it. And
You're
if
not.
if we don't, then certainly our community isn't gonna have their arms around it.
Yeah.
Could I make
Yeah.
a comment?
So I would recommend that
Oh,
we,
Michael
Can I
wants to
make a
make
comment? Is it able, can I make a comment?
Yeah, all right, go ahead.
Okay. I think it is very confusing. It took me a really long time to look at this, but I look at it from a macro point. Why is this happening? And I think why it's happening is the push is to have more people in Vermont. By creating these zones, it makes it easier to have more density. That is the macro view, and I think that's what we have to look at. That's, what is the intention of all this? And you work it down to the details. But you have to look at the macro view, and that's where I look at these zones. And if the macro view is to have more people, that means you get rid of the Act 250, it makes it a little bit more easy to go a little bit denser. That's kind of how I looked at it, so I just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you.
yeah, the thing I think we need to keep in mind is that, the town of Dorset has rigorous regulations, both through our zoning bylaws and through our subdivision regulations. And Act 250 tends to be redundant in the review of whatever is coming before the planning commission to be approved. So just keep that in mind too, that we will always have the Dorset's subdivision and
Right, which-
regulation.
With the revamp, the recent redo, they're challenging now.
Yeah.
The old regs were pretty easy to get through.
The
Will
new
there be-
ones are
And
much.
the new ones are
new ones
robust.
are much,
They're
much more difficult.
yeah.
Will there be discussion from the floor on this later? Or now, or not?
Yes, because I have some questions.
Well, I think,
I don't know.
I mean, normally we have our public comment and then we are allowed to discuss things amongst ourselves, so sometimes it's hard to get through, but,
Well, maybe,
Yeah.
I think, I would make a motion to table
Yeah.
this decision.
Yeah.
So that means, we're probably, tonight, we're not gonna make a decision, so, if it goes that way, so that we could all get ourselves more up to speed, because I'm not sure we're gonna have the answers to some of your questions.
And perhaps we, like in the next town email, have a link that's submit your questions on
Yeah, I was
1B,
gonna say,
and
if we-
everyone can submit
That'd be
their
great.
questions,
If you,
and then we can
yeah,
make
if you
sure we
wanna
address
even
all of
email
them.
me the questions, I can
Okay.
see if we can
Yeah,
get an
thank
answer
you,
for
Rob.
you.
So I'd
okay,
make
so there's a motion
table
to just table.
this
Table
item.
decision and let townspeople know they can send
I'll
questions
second that.
Yep.
Right, and then we
That
can also
makes-
get more information and have more info sessions and
Right.
Right,
even
because we
figure
probably
out if
can't
it's.
answer all the questions.
Right.
Right, so we would need time to look at them and work with experts to even answer them.
Yep,
Great, thank you.
Okay,
suggestion
our
is how
goal
you
is
come
really
back
to
and
hear
present.
to our residents, we try to be responsive, so I just, I want you to know that we're not,
Sorry, Frank seconded
Well,
that? Or Allison?
Henry did.
Henry did,
I
sorry,
don't
Henry.
speak for anybody, but I know that the people on that machine and all the other people are gonna be very pleased with the way you've conducted tonight. Right.
well, thank you.
I would say this is the norm,
Exactly.
just so everyone can feel.
Usually no one's here.
No, nobody's here.
That's true.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, let's see where we are. Okay, so we now have to open the town budget public hearing.
I move that we open the public hearing to review the town budget, to hear comment on the town
I
budget.
think we forgot to close the other public hearing, but
We did.
just pretend we did that.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. And we have a revised budget because there were someplace where something was duplicated. Anyway, thanks to Jim's good eyes. So you have to look at the one not in the packet, but the one that's separate.
Could we know what was,
It was a revenue.
Short-term
double
rental
or something.
revenue.
Yeah, Nancy,
Double count.
I put it in there and then Nancy, Nancy put it in and
oh, short
I
term?
added to it,
Yeah,
it was my
yeah,
fault.
yeah.
Yeah, it was in two separate
Yep.
lines, but it was the same thing.
And
Okay.
there, as I said, there is the highlight memo if you want me to go through it.
Yeah, go through the memo for us, Rob, please.
Fiscal '27 town budget, the draft expense increase from year to year is around 7%. I'll try to give a synopsis of what we're gonna do with the money. The town clerk position has been shifted back to a 1.25 FTE position, so that represents a general decline. On the highway projects and equipment, the plan is to pave a portion of Raptor Lane to the town office, resurface the upper portion of Danby Mountain Road. We're within that paving budget. There's also a little bit of money to retire the paving fund deficit, so that'll be zeroed out, which is good. Lower Hollow Road, there's bridge number, I think it's 27.
Is that on Lower Hollow?
On Lower Hollow
By,
Road. It is the first of the two
Firestones?
bridges, yeah,
Okay.
in that general area. It's like near 1100 Lower Hollow.
Is that I saw an increase in the line of about like 35,000.
Yeah.
That's
So we
our
got a-
portion of that?
So the full project's about 245. We got a grant for 200, and then the town, this particular line item for this year is going to offset the rest of that expense. So that I don't have a time frame for the work or whatnot, but it's good because it's in rough shape. So and we'll be
The
able
whole
to,
thing's gonna be replaced, or is it just the,
there's going to be abutment rehabilitation work, and then there's going to be the bridge deck is going to get replaced.
okay.
Rob, do you have a timeline on that? I live right.
Yep, so Don, so yeah, I'm hoping it's gonna be probably, either, it's probably not gonna be spring, it's probably gonna be like late fall, late summer, early fall type thing.
And any thought on the duration of?
3 weeks.
That's all?
Yeah, is what 3 weeks is what they've told me. Anybody that lives adjacent to that will get a piece of mail
Yeah.
from us to, we're in advance of that going to try to get dates out of anybody that lives in the general area, that if there's anything going on, like a summer wedding or something like that, that we can try to have the vendor avoid that. And the general thinking is that I'm going to ask for it to be earlier in the year, and they're going to probably push me off until later in the year.
Rob, somebody's in the waiting room.
Oh, thanks, Frank. I can barely do one thing as opposed to two things. Yeah, so more to follow on that. As we talked about the Deming Pond, if you're first getting onto Morse Hill Road from 7A, you'll see that kind of, there's a culvert and then there's a confluence of where the river kind of goes through into the pond. There's a bit of dredging work that the owners around the pond were not able to do in their scope. But it's within the right of way of the road, and there's a lot of structure, culvert impacts, road impacts. So we're trying to factor in potentially having the bridge vendor actually do that dredging work adjacent with the bridge work at some point, which would be good. What else? There's a lot of other stuff that we've talked about. Some seed money for design for so Route 7 potential infrastructure improvements / road diet. Yeah, we're awaiting one of the bigger ones, really at both the town, probably fire district levels, that we're awaiting some feedback from the state on the Prentice Pond Dam. So the dam has been in, it's an earthen dam. It's a couple hundred years old. After the storm a few years ago, the state changed the rules related to dam safety and regulation, and so something potentially is going to be prescribed from the state, but we don't know what that's going to be yet, and that could have kind of future budget impacts.
Because that was pretty expensive.
We have some,
we looked into it.
yeah, I mean, we have some funding related to like kind of early preliminary design in the budget. It's certainly like depending on what the state kind of says we need to do, that'll inform. It definitely won't be something that, will be sneaking up on us, I don't think.
That's the kind of project that could require bonding.
Yes, it's potentially, and there's the water line involved, and there's a lot of other stuff that would have to be factored in. But when we get that, we're gonna have to start to plan for it. The town office bond, it's a little bit less than last year, but it's, still part of that, the debt repayment. The former town office site, the ARPA funding is kind of well underway to do that. I've got a footnote in here just that there may be, we've demoed the building, remediated part of the site, but we're not complete yet, so I'm not sure. We had a budget of like 175 to do the demo, clean up the site, and then put some structures and some other stuff into the green space.
Right.
And I've got a little bit of money in the budget to maybe augment that if it's needed.
Okay.
The personnel stuff's pretty straightforward, 3% COLA. Let's see, the miscellaneous stuff, the assessing contract. So this is an agreement with NEMC, which would be to continue the assessing work that they built upon with their database after the reappraisal. Sheriff contract does have a pretty good increase, but it's kind of been in chunks over a couple of years. Property casualty insurance a little bit lower.
The sheriff contract, it's not up 185,000 this year. That's just
No, that's the total.
Total.
Yeah, that's the total. It's probably
But it's up from like 160
Right.
Yeah, I think it's like a 15%. Thank you. These are all people that maybe. Yeah, I think it's like a 10 or 15% increase overall for the sheriff's budget. Yeah, and then the second page just has a more general breakdown of everything.
Right.
So I'll be quiet.
I mean, I thought everything looked
Are we
fine to
looking for a
me.
motion?
Well, this is a public hearing,
Yeah.
so we're looking for public comment, if there's any.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah, Don?
Could you clarify for me what, item 10,6,468 FEMA expense is $1,300,000?
On the FY25 actual, Don?
Yes.
Yep.
Highways and road maintenance.
Yep, so that was the purchase, the FEMA buyout of the Chanticleer property. So there's an offsetting, if you look at the revenues, there's an offsetting grant to.
Is that offset 100%?
Not in one fiscal year, but yes, over the course of 2 fiscal years, yes.
Okay, so that's what, that came, went to FEMA and then it's coming back from a different grant.
It passes through the state in two chunks. They give you, I think, 90% or 95%, and then when FEMA closes the project out and gives you like a check, then they send the other 5% back.
And who owns that property now?
The town owns it now.
And what are the plans for that property?
So, with FEMA buyouts, it has to be preserved as open space in perpetuity because of it's basically getting rid of flood
So
risk.
it's going to be some sort of park, green space, or it's just
Yeah.
left as is?
Right now, it's just been mowed. We're not allowed to have structures on it, but there could be other like recreational uses. Yes.
So no plan at this point to spend any money there?
No.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Questions from outside? No?
Just a quick question about our Dorset sheriff, because when you call 911, Manchester town, Manchester Police Department answers. So how does it work in order, like, do we have to have a direct contact number for our sheriff in order of emergency, or, because I was trying to call once 911 and the Manchester Police answered and they said, you in Dorset, we can't help you guys. Call your sheriff, basically.
Well, usually if you call 911, they'll take whoever is closest, even if it's not our sheriff. But if you call Manchester, I know sometimes they'll say no.
No, when you call 911, it's going to go to the dispatch center that's the closest to you, and then then the dispatch center is going to have to get in contact with whatever agency whatever community you live in. So if it's going to, if you're calling 911, it's going to Manchester, that means that the sheriff's department in Manchester have an agreement for them to dispatch those 911 calls, and then they have to then get the sheriff's department on the horn.
That's not going to the Manchester Police Department, it's going to the Manchester Dispatch
Center.
Center.
Or
it could end up going to Washington County.
Correct,
Potentially.
yeah.
It could go to, or something like that, and then they dispatch up.
When J.K. Adams had an alarm system working from 2 a.m. in the morning and all our neighborhood was up and running, right? I called 911 because I wasn't sure what is it coming from, what's going on and everything. I called 911 and he's like, oh, it's Manchester Police Department and you have to contact the Dorset Sheriff. I'm like, okay. At 2 a.m.
No, I mean, if it was deemed a non-emergency call, that's why maybe they would have told you to call the sheriff directly. But normally, if you call 911, whoever's the dispatching agency is then going to reach out to that agency that you're looking for.
How would they know if it's emergency or not, right?
By what you gave them on the call, what you were saying was happening.
Well, it's one thing. If you told them there were gunshots, they probably have a different
Right.
answer.
I'm sure they have their own requirement as to what they think is an emergency. Anyway, any comments on the budget? Okay, do you guys have anything further?
No.
Eagle eyes over there?
Yeah, I think it looks pretty good.
Okay. All right, so do we go out of public hearing and then make a motion?
Yep.
Okay. Do we have a motion to leave public hearing?
So moved.
And enter, okay.
Second.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the budget as,
I will make a
Presented.
motion to approve the budget as presented.
And I will second.
okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
This is the,
Okay.
Well, there's too many pieces of paper here.
I know,
It's not over yet?
that's part of the problem. Okay.
We did the minutes.
All right, so I think we are on to old business, new business.
So East Dorset East Dorset traffic calming, we have the two, so at the last meeting, we had two potential proposals related to bike path improvements and sidewalk, as well as road narrowing, trying to integrate a couple of different things. The kind of chief goal with this was to try to slow down traffic in East Dorset Village on Route 7. So we didn't really have a decision at the last meeting, but we have essentially two kind of concepts to take to V-Trans. One includes sidewalk on the western side of Route 7, and one does not. And
Right.
so we're, I'm trying to get some feedback from the board as to which one you would like to, take to V-Trans and tell them, ask them about. Because at this point, it's just it's a concept. V-Trans has to kind of comment on the concept and then have a discussion about, what they see as feasible.
So are these the same, because we've seen this before, are these the same
It's the same from the
three?
last.
There are three different ones here,
There's
or are
three,
they
but
the
there's,
same?
yeah, there's, one's gonna have sidewalk on one side, one doesn't.
And as far as availability of grant funding or anything?
It's a good question, Jim. So there's a couple of, there's not a ton of, there's some pedestrian infrastructure grants, but they're kind of wonky, and I don't know that it would make a lot of sense. You usually have to do a scoping study beforehand, and there's not a ton of money that V-Trans makes available. The hope here is that within the there's two parts. There's within the budget numbers that you see, around 125,000 of that includes an overlay, which is a repaving of the whole area, which if it's done out of sequence with V-Trans paving schedule, they're gonna make you
Right.
add that in. If it's synced up with V-Trans paving schedule, you could potentially reduce the number by that 125. And then the second kind of discussion point with V-Trans is to see how much, if any of some of these items they would potentially try to include in the repaving work. It's, they have capital projects that they design and do. So if there was a chance that the town could get that, portions or some of it included in their capital projects in conjunction with the repaving, there's a chance that they would pay for a pretty big chunk of it.
But, from what we've got, we've been talking about this for a very long time.
Yeah.
And for us to get the road diet would require us to do something as significant
So
as this.
if you remember, the road diet discussion was that the actual just like cutting of the pavement could be very minimal costs, $20,000. But V-Trans is still gonna make you spend that $125,000 on top of the 20.
I'm just thinking as far as, the
To
amount
repave.
of, the size of the project we do, it's, again, we wanted to get the speed down, we've done some things to do that. But again, initially we're just talking about, smaller lanes and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But
painting and whatnot.
yeah, having, the road diet is narrowing the road so people feel they have to slow down. But, I'm just, I'm still like, it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
For, to accomplish, and that's why I was thinking, to the extent that it's hard to get comfy with.
Well, and I think that we don't have comments from them yet. So the thinking was to try to include some infrastructure that could aid the village. There would be a change in the aesthetic, and you'd also accomplish your road diet piece. Maybe on the bare minimum was that you could we could try to get in line with their paving schedule and try to have the conversation about just narrowing the lanes when they pave. But I don't know how they will receive that.
Right.
And again, did you have any idea where we are on their paving schedule? I mean, are we talking 5 years, 2 years?
They're not giving us, the general, I think it was last paved in 15, and the general thinking is that it's gonna be soon, but I think it's behind the Route 30 section from Rupert to Pollitt, and that's not done yet, so I think it's outside of 5 years.
Okay.
Which means we have time to have this kind of discussion. And if you, and inside of that 5 years, if you wanna just cut the road, we go back to kind of square one, where if we say we want to cut the road, they're going to say, well, it's going to cost you $225,000 or whatever which it doesn't make sense to do. So we kind of been spinning wheels instead of spinning wheels. We just tried to kind of restructure what it might look like to see about what they think, and then whether or not it could be factored into a capital project. Because if they're 8 or 9, 10 years away, and we could convince them to
spend money,
put this into a capital project, even if the town has to spend some money to augment it, it could be a very different financial composition.
It's just a big difference between doing something that would cost $250 and something that would cost close to $1 million.
right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and then there has to be a discussion about the whether or not it makes sense, I guess.
This sort of precedes my time, but I'm assuming this came up because people in East Dorset, right, have issues. It gets kind of crazy with the gas station. Maybe it's worth having like a little presentation with them and showing them these designs and seeing what they think and explaining how much it costs, and if you want a sidewalk and you want these things on both sides, it's like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, I mean, I think
has to get paid for somehow.
Potentially could be in the cards, but the first step is to get some comfort around a conceptual design, and then get comments from V-Trans, because there's a chance that they may say, no way, you can't do any of that stuff, or we're going to fight you on all of it.
Well, I mean, my own personal feeling, one, is the least expensive. Two, is the bike path on the east side, because I think on the west side, you have less of an issue and you've got more trucks pulling out.
There's too many ins and outs over there.
Yeah, and so at least the bike path is like the simplest, and would, as Frank put it, as a East Dorset person, it would give you a place where you could loop. So if you were gonna,
well, and just even having the path with extra green, I think would make people slow down. You put up, can we put up signs? Can we put like a bike sign or people walking with extra signage that would maybe help with
yeah,
the.
it's still a state road, so I don't know if they'll let us do that, but that would be, if we decided to go down this path, if we could find a way to get the state to pay for a chunk of it or get a grant.
That's kind of the general.
This would be the one I would think.
Which I guess I tend to think, we're mostly just trying to get feedback from V-Trans at this point, then we probably go with the more modest and get their feedback based on that.
I also, there's so many people going in and out of the gas station and the other buildings, I almost don't want to encourage people to use the
walk over
sidewalk
there.
on that
Exactly.
side. Like, it just seems like we'd be adding danger.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree that the proposal with just on the east side of the road, I think, makes sense. That short segment and the little island, that's gonna be covered in snow half the year, and you're gonna get hit walking through there.
Right.
And then the other small section of sidewalk is so little, it doesn't really add anything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So,
sounds like
so consensus is
I will.
less expensive,
Yep.
simpler, and then we can look at it and see, and if in fact we would have to pay for the chunk of it, then we can decide if we want to go back and just cut the road.
Yeah, and this, I mean, there's
200,000.
this type of a thing could be years and years and years to develop.
Yeah, so what happened, Allison, was there was actually a couple of very bad accidents there where cars were waiting to turn and trucks just plowed right into them. So we've
there's been a
working
progression of
on
changes at the intersection.
trying to make things, trying to make it obvious that there's a town there, because, people just kind of.
Which there were some improvements already made to it, but it's not enough to get the speeds down.
Yeah, and the crosswalk helps.
Yes, it does.
Lots of people ignore it, but it does
And
help.
the speed signs, having those up,
Yeah, I find that
positive.
makes a difference.
I noticed, definitely versus the old days, I think, people, when you're coming into Dorset from the north.
You start to sense it because you've got the speed signs.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Okay.
Good.
East Dorset flooding.
No change there. The Upper Hollow 10-acre lot, I reported this, I think, at the last meeting, that we've looked at a new engineering firm about design work related to that lot, and I'm waiting for kind of a scope and fee from that new vendor. Short-term rentals, we're actually up to about 60, I think, one today. 60, and we're at the point where we've reached the 1-year period where people have to start to pay again. So that's fun. And let's see, I think we're down to about 8 to 10 that are, you know, as far as we can tell, you know, probably need to register. And it's kind of it's been a moving target. Right? So there's some that when they're in that 8 to 10 and then we have some connection, they go, well, I'm taking it off, and then, okay. And then it doesn't meet the criterion anymore.
The software you're using for support, is that still working out real well?
Yeah, it's really helpful. It's really helpful, and they're going to have actually some data that the housing market analysis that gets done, like there's going to be data that they can take from that portal to kind of better inform some of the assumptions about that, you know, the short-term rentals in the stock. Like if you recall, like with the housing needs assessment, it was just like an assumption that I think there was like 100 of them. 100 short-term rentals, and now we're through the active kind of registration process that we're doing. It's showing that it's really probably 70, 60 of which have registered. So it's good. It's good information.
And East Dorset Green, you said, is?
Yep, I've got some financials about that in the finance report. We are through the building's gone, asbestos part is gone. Pavement's still there, that's got to get remediated, and then we got to get some topsoil in and grass growing. And then kind of concurrent with that, the little subcommittee of East Dorset folks are going to pick out a pavilion and some other improvements that they would like to see. Route 30 speeding stuff, there's really no change there. Board of Civil Authority, the town has retained an appraiser for that appeal, and they've agreed to conduct an appraisal on the appealing property, and then the next court date is, I believe, late winter.
Late winter, okay.
Yep. And then, let's see, I'll do the equalization study next, and then we'll go back to the
Okay.
more strategy. So the equalization study for last year is 103%, and this is after reappraisal, and if you recall now, the state has its own kind of CLA metric that it uses, which then impacts the rate in the individual town, and that brings our CLA up to 146%. And what that means is that it will put a downward pressure on the tax rate for both school and homestead, school, and non-residential, and then I can't know 100%, but the local spending, I think that is, only a couple of percentage points on the expense side for the schools, so I think that's been pretty flat.
Okay.
Well, and that just to kind of, the equalization study numbers, they do flow through exactly to the T&G budget, and with our bump up in assessed values and stuff, we're looking at, Dorset actually having a education tax rate will be increasing this year, but it'll actually be under $1 because, which, across the T&G, the tax rates by town go from us under $1 to Peru over $2, but, that's based upon.
They haven't reappraised yet.
Yeah. So, from just to kind of throw it out there, or, based upon the budget approved, we are looking at a, 7+% increase in education property taxes.
All right, last thing on new business, the Moore Strategies proposal. So, no other way to say it other than I made a mistake. The work scope that was included in the packet is not what was talked about with that group. And that's, the work scope isn't even close. It also runs potentially afoul of when things start to get on ballots, the town has to be in a position where it provides the factual information that is necessary to keep people informed for that particular issue. So there's Secretary of State guidance that we have to follow. And in that, in that description of the work scope, there's stuff that flies against that, and it shouldn't have been in the work scope, and I didn't catch it, and that's my fault, so I apologize for that. And it seems like, now it doesn't really make any sense to continue the discussion, especially with a lot of the other stuff that we've been talking about in terms of slowing the process down and all that.
Yeah.
But I still do think that we could use some help just making sure, it puts a lot on your shoulders to be the main communication person, trying to keep the town informed. I think, maybe not this amount of money, but having somebody to assist with our just getting, information out to the town, because they were talking about doing social media and a website, and, expand the website and do some stuff like that. I still think you've been doing a great job lately of getting, information out there, but still, it's really hard to communicate with,
1,000 people.
Yeah. I mean, we have the same thing with the school districts. We have, it's trying to communicate, and, people always say, you never told me this, and it's like, we're trying.
My advice to you,
Yeah.
if you do that, is not to hire these people.
Yeah, well,
No, that's fine.
Right now, I'm just telling you.
But I think we,
I think having, having somebody help us with communications would
Yeah,
make some sense.
communicate in a fair and
neutral way.
neutral way.
Yeah.
Well, that is a
I mean,
requirement, that we're not allowed to take a position as
Yeah.
a select
We should,
board.
right?
Yeah,
You need a law to tell you that.
If we can just pause for a second, Dave, because I know you did make your point before, and I think we actually all, I know when I first read this, I just thought there's no way I would
Right.
go back to them. Too bad, because they seem good, but I don't know how they missed this cue so badly and, came up with this stuff, which a lot of it is just misrepresentation. So I would not feel comfortable hiring these people.
That's fine.
And-
I'm just advocating for
You're
us.
advocating for the concept.
We could
right.
use some help on making sure we're getting communications out.
Yeah, yeah.
Can I say something? I so appreciate what you're saying. It would be really nice to hire local people to do stuff. I mean, you could hire BBA kids to do the Facebook page, or there are two people I can think off the top of my head who live here locally, who do this professionally. As you said, if it's going to be neutral, having someone run a Facebook page or work with Rob on the website is easy, and it's nice to hire.
Well, send us those names anyway, Tricia, so that
I will.
we can consider them. Okay, because we're doing a little more interactive tonight, because we need to get our discussion done, and I would happily turn my seat over if one of you wants to sit up here. Michael, go ahead.
Can I ask a question? When I read this More Strategies proposal,
I don't,
can I speak to, it's kind of the tone. So, one of the things in here says prioritize outreach to full-time Dorset residents, creating authentic grassroots-based support to help ensure a clear and decisive vote, while simultaneously neutralizing negative narratives driven by second homes and third home interests. So either they went totally rogue, or, and we'll just take it at that.
We'll take it at that. Let's put it this way. I think our impression when we read this was the same that everyone else had. We were just like, what are they talking about?
Yeah, because actually the first time I had heard Morris' name was looking at the board package today.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I think, in general, I think they've made a lot of assumptions as to what.
I'm just puzzled how they came up with this stuff. But the point being,
I don't think they
we're-
had many towns on their client list.
well, apparently they're,
Yeah,
they've
corporate
got a
entities and
decent,
stuff like that.
yeah, but whatever it was and wherever they got their information.
The context is wrong.
So,
But we're not considering it anyway, so.
yeah, I think the consensus is there's absolutely no way we would hire them, and that this was totally wrong to begin with and was incorrect. So, not even sure what we're gonna do if we would use anyone else, but we're happy to look at, consider other options.
Just,
if people
it's
have
always, we
some
rely
suggestions.
on our, people at town hall to do a lot of stuff that is kind of beyond the,
Right.
the job description.
Yeah, and having some professionals, involved, it's like we provide some money to the Chamber of Commerce too, to, you know, to help support their work.
You've got a
Yeah.
lawyer on staff, so to speak, yeah.
I get all that, but I think also this is, you know, this is a, something that people feel very strongly about. So we just need to be absolutely as transparent as possible, not, you know, that's our role, is not to decide for people, but to take information and try,
But we do
again,
have to
to
make
build a
sure
consensus.
that
To
we're
get
getting
the
the word
information out there,
Yeah.
yes. Okay, so we hear your mea culpa, and,
Move on.
yeah. All right, so,
One question about this before we move on.
who was
This is
that?
Steve Zorick. Steve Zorick.
Steve?
Was White and Burke the primary contact with Morris Strategies? And is there some miscommunication that went on between them and Morris Strategies that led to this?
Yes. And myself.
Okay. All right. So,
Finance?
yeah, finance report. Okay, so we're not hiring them, just so you know, and,
Thank you.
you're lucky.
Let's see. Delinquent taxes, so year over year, pretty even. There's a tax sale that's going to be warned for the end of February. There's a payment plan from the last time around that is now in arrears and in violation of the payment plan, so it's going to be warned for tax sale. And it's the one everybody's going to be thinking about.
Is it the same one as always?
Yep. Fiscal 26, we're about 60% of the way through the year, about 61% expended. Things are pretty normal, and we've got one final reimbursement from the bond for the town office soft cost. I think the engineers and the architect were really slow with a couple of bills. But yeah, generally things are pretty normal. As far as the sinking fund balances, you can go down through, you can see the town office solar, it's been adjusted to accommodate some of the changes that we're gonna hope to do in the spring at the East Dorset shed site. The Mad Tom Road site, that's the East Dorset Green, so far that's the total number spent on demolition, which includes the remediation of the asbestos and the demolition of the building. And I think there's about another 10,000 in pavement to be gone, and then topsoil and seed. So, what else is the White and Burke numbers updated? Natural resources studies the same, and then the housing market study is in there, but there's no invoices yet.
Okay.
And then all the other fund balances are the same as last month.
All right, does anybody have any questions?
We got somebody waiting.
Thanks.
I move we accept the finance report as presented.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So town managers,
All right, 11 storm events, and we're putting down a ton of salt. Salt is getting harder to get.
yeah, I
Lot of-
can
lot
imagine,
of
we've
winter
had so many
stone.
storms.
Yep, the new truck that we ordered 3 years ago is here. And they tell me I have to order another one because we need it in 3 years. It's hard to wrap your brain around, but there it is. The crew's been doing a good job. We have been down a truck for the last couple of storms, but I think everything's back to normal now, which is good. And then we're starting to do the coordination for some of the paving that I talked about in the budget. The fire district held a public hearing last week here. The state was present to discuss well 3, which is the new water source on Cheney. I generally think the meeting went pretty well. Turnout was not as high as I would have thought. I think we had about 10 people-ish.
Less.
Less, 6?
Yeah.
and that was after a postcard to everybody. I think I mentioned this in the last board packet, but the well 3 tested for trace amounts of PFAS, and it's under the state's limit to treat, but the district is in a little different position right now, where the work that's gone on in the village the last 3 years it's finally bearing fruit. It's tightened up the system so that the water loss and waste is much less than what it used to be. And there's a chance that by June, the state would lift the moratorium on what they call new allocation, which would allow, customers within the district to potentially add bedrooms in a limited capacity, which is a big deal because it's been about 40 years that's been kind of the case. And the fire district has the final phase of the existing kind of effort to be carried out this summer. So there's going to be more work done by Casella adjacent to Route 30, which hopefully is going to just work further to drive down the water use. What I'm getting at is that the need for the well 3 is not as pressing as it was before the work. It's still a significant asset that the fire district has, but the need to hook it up is not as pressing, which is good because it's going to give some time to talk about what if it is used, the treatment, what the treatment costs, whether or not the district would like to put that money into treatment or something else. Those are the 2 big items. The rest are getting ready for town meeting. Sandy's last day was a few weeks ago. And then, the rest of it we all talked about.
When I was talking to Rob before, so the town meeting is still going to be at the school?
Correct. The floor meeting will be at the school.
Voting will be here on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So you'll know that.
Is tomorrow?
No, this is in March, the town meeting.
Tomorrow's here. Right.
Yep, tomorrow's here online and
5:30.
Physically here, 5:30.
Yep. Okay, so we've got to do payroll, and also we're going to go into an executive session because we need to discuss a personnel employment issue. So for that, we'll retire into the conference room. Should we sign the warnings? And did Nancy have something that we had to sign?
I gotta go get
sign
it.
it all?
Yeah, I gotta go get it.
Okay.
Can I ask a couple of questions? One is, how many households are on town water?
Well, Rob will know the exact answer. I think it's close to around 200.
It's about 200, yeah.
Around 200. And how many students are we financing right now, like sending them to schools and everything this year?
You mean
How
how
many
many
students? Yeah.
like to be
Those
in
PBA
the
or
population of
PBA,
that I don't know off the top of my head.
We don't have a breakdown by town of number of students.
Dorset, just the Dorset, town of Dorset. How many
We
students
have
do
the number, well, we have, what we've had with the Dorset school, we're gonna have a totally different restructuring next year. We're doing schools differently because Courier and Sunderland schools are closing. But we have the Dorset school, our local population of Dorset kids in the Dorset school has been dropping pretty seriously, but we have, within the school, within the Taconic Green, we have a intra-district school choice. So the Dorset school tends to be very full because a lot of kids from other towns have wanted to be going to the Dorset school. And so the Dorset school's been very full, but I'll tell you,
Not full of Dorset kids.
Not full
No,
of Dorset
no.
kids. If we had not joined with the TNG, we would have been in an ugly place because, the numbers are just dropping pretty
It probably.
What's that?
Where are the Dorset kids going?
They all got born during COVID, so they're starting to go to Dorset now.
But how many students, Dorset kids, we are actually because our taxes are basically educational tax, right? So if we have to send 200 kids to school or 500 kids to school, we go by like 20,000 per child, right?
Dorset does not have a school district. We have Taconic and Green School District.
Yeah.
which I actually have a petition here, if you want to sign for me to continue being on the board. But the Taconic and Green, so, you know, we provide, we don't look at our, the school board has very consciously tried to get totally away from the idea of, you know, I'm from Dorset, I'm on a Taconic Green board. I'm not just concerned with Dorset kids, I'm concerned with all kids that
But our taxes are based on Dorset kids, right? How many kids we have? Just what
your taxes are based on, we have one school tax rate across all of our towns, an education tax rate. That gets adjusted by the CLA, where they adjust based upon where properties are assessed in the town, you know, but we actually, the Taconic and Green for all 9 towns has one tax rate.
Wait, is that the same for high school? Because doesn't the...
High school's part of that budget.
So we don't know how many Dorset kids are going to Bernard for long term?
I don't have that number, we just have our total number of kids from P&G going to. Yeah, I can tell you how many kids we have budgeted.
You don't have to, we won't take your time.
But
Yeah,
you gotta figure them. So my daughter's in 10th grade. They were probably 15 kids who were Dorset kids in her class. So probably 15 to 20 Dorset kids per grade.
There's 13 children in
So-
my daughter's kindergarten class.
You know,
At Dorset.
to get a rough idea.
Yeah.
yeah, it's the, you know, but what we've had is, we were seeing significant decreases. At some point I had the number of kids, Dorset kids going to the Dorset school, and it was getting scary. Because it really,
There was a year of like 4
we unfortunately, yeah, I'd love to see more kids in our town, you know, families with kids in our town, but it's been declining a lot.
Do we need a motion to go into executive session? Okay. As soon as I finish signing, can we have a motion to go into executive session to discuss a personnel /
If anybody
employment?
does want to sign my petition for the school board,
Yes, I do.
I'd be appreciative.
For running for school board, which she has done for years, and it's very good.
I'm on the Taconic Green and I'm chair of the
You can
Bennington
sign it.
Mountain Supervisory.
Is it for you?
Yeah.
It's for Jim.
I will make a motion to go into executive session.
Okay, did I have a second? Okay.
Okay, should we go someplace else?
We're gonna go in the conference room. Can everybody say aye? Aye. Okay,
We'll go to the anti.
all right. We
I
is
move we adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Need a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Who
Was there anything?
moved?
You just pick whoever
Tim
you want.
and Frank.